Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that Australian fisherman Alfred Dean caught a 2,664-pound great white shark with just a simple fishing rod and reel? Learn how Dean and his crew fought the shark throughout the night, off the shore of a small South Australian town. Discover that at 6:30 a.m., Dean dropped his line into the water and the shark took the bait.
Imagine you are on a small boat. It's the dead of night.
Just completely pitch black out there.
Right. You are floating off the coast of a tiny South Australian town, and you literally can't see the water around you.
Yeah, but you can feel it.
Exactly. You can feel what is in it because your small vessel is, it's currently being violently bumped and rolled by something massive just beneath the surface.
I mean, that is just genuinely terrifying.
It is. You're sitting there shivering in the salt air, holding this humble rod and reel, and on the other end of your line is a creature that is actively trying to bash the hull of your boat.
And like trying to take a bite out of the propeller, right?
Yes. The sensory deprivation of the dark combined with that sheer physical force, it's wild. It puts a human being in direct contact with the absolute unknown.
It totally strips away all our modern comforts.
It really does. And, this is not a scene from some thriller. It is a true story, and it represents the extreme edge of something human beings have been doing for thousands of years.
Yeah, it's a huge part of our history.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore a stack of fascinating sources that trace the ultimate human endeavor of angling.
From an ancient method of daily survival right up to a heart-pounding extreme sport.
Exactly. And finally, we'll uncover its profound transformation into a spiritual calling.
It's an incredible trajectory. I mean, a simple rod and reel might seem like basic hardware, but the sources we're looking at today reveal that fishing actually charts the evolution of human psychology.
Right. It's like the ultimate metaphor for how we interact with the things we cannot see. Okay, let's unpack this, because we really have to start by resolving that terrifying situation I just put you in.
Yeah, we can't just leave people hanging on that boat.
Right. So the year is 1959. The date is April 21st. The man sitting on that boat in the dark is an Australian fisherman named Alfred Dean.
And he's floating off the shore of a place fittingly called Denial Bay.
Denial Bay, yeah. And he has been out there all night long.
Just locked in this grueling, multi-hour war of attrition.
Waiting in the dark.
Yeah, enduring this psychological test from the creature. Because the shark isn't just swimming around, it's bumping the boat, rolling against the wood, testing the perimeter.
It is actively stalking the people floating above it.
Exactly.
And it isn't until 6:03 in the morning, so the sun is just starting to bleed over the horizon, that Dean drops his line back into the water and the shark finally takes the bait.
But the shark doesn't just, panic and try to swim away.
No, it goes on the offensive.
It fights back. The sources describe it actively attempting to destroy the boat.
Right. Targeting the propeller.
Yeah, trying to eliminate the very thing keeping Dean afloat. And Dean is fighting this apex predator using basic 1950s tackle.
Which is wild.
Specifically, he's using a 130-pound test line.
Which, brings up a massive mechanical problem. How do you fight a monster that is large enough to eat a boat propeller using a line that breaks under just 130 pounds of pressure?
You really can't outmuscle it.
It's like trying to tow a full-size car with a shoestring. If you just lock your arm and try to hold your ground, that strung is going to snap instantly.
What's fascinating here is the sheer physical impossibility of the event. If you look at it purely as a tug of war,
Right.
the physics and the willpower required to land a creature of that size with that gear completely rules out brute force.
So how does he do it?
Well, the mechanism that makes it possible is the reel's drag system. It acts essentially as a slipping clutch.
Oh, I see. So you aren't just pulling the shark in, you are letting it run, but making it work for every single inch.
Exactly. The angler sets the tension on the reel just below the breaking point of the line. So when the shark surges, the reel pays out line, but with heavy, grinding friction.
So the shark is dragging the mechanical resistance of the reel plus the buoyancy of the boat.
And the physical endurance of the human holding the rod. Dean was playing this flawless, hours-long game of exhaustion.
Wow.
Every single adjustment had to be perfect. If he clamped down too hard for even a fraction of a second, the line snaps.
And if he gives too much slack, the shark gains the upper hand and destroys the gear.
Right.
But Dean somehow maintains that razor's edge of perfection.
He outlasts the creature. He actually manages to secure this great white shark and bring it back to the docks at Denial Bay.
And when they arrive, the crew is completely unsure of the shark's actual weight.
I mean, they've been fighting this thing in the dark in the chaos of the early morning. They know it is massive, but they don't know the exact scale.
Not until they hoist it up onto the official scale.
And the number is staggering.
Yeah, 2,664 pounds.
A 2,664-pound great white shark, caught with a rod and a reel.
More than a ton of pure muscle and teeth.
And to this day, that remains the world record for the largest fish ever caught on a rod and reel. The record still stands.
It really does. And the incredible psychological footnote to this is that Alfred Dean lived until 1991, and he died always believing there was a bigger one out there.
He never stopped believing that an even more massive creature was swimming in the depths. But, you know, as amazing as Dean's 1959 record is, it really begs the question, how did humanity even arrive at a point where hunting 2-ton sea monsters with a rod and reel became an accepted pursuit?
Right, because it wasn't always like that. The sources trace the earliest history of angling all the way back to 2000 BC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was this incredibly slow, utilitarian evolution. We see the very first historical mention of using reels, with rods appearing in a 4th century Chinese text.
Okay, so a very long time ago.
Exactly. And for thousands of years, this technology was developed for one solitary purpose, which was daily survival.
Just putting food on the table.
Yeah, it was quiet, laborious, and essential. You cast a line to feed your family.
But that slow evolution completely fractures in the middle of the 20th century. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the catalyst for modern extreme monster hunting wasn't a commercial fisherman looking for a bigger payday.
No, it was an explosive cultural event in 1950.
Right. The governor of South Australia, a man named Governor Norrie, went on a highly publicized 3-day shark fishing expedition and managed to catch a 2,225-pound shark.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Governor Norrie's catch represents a massive societal shift.
How so?
Well, you have a head of state, a high society figure, engaging in this specific activity. It immediately legitimized the extreme edge of angling.
Oh, I see.
Suddenly, you have a flood of big game hunters descending on these coastal towns.
It sparked an absolute frenzy. The sources describe how, after the governor's catch, it became an outright race to see who could land the biggest shark ever recorded.
It officially became recognized as a sport.
Right, but I have to push back on that framing a little bit. Calling it a sport feels entirely inadequate when we look at the reality of what was happening on the water.
I mean, in 1950, it absolutely was viewed as a sport, much like big game hunting in Africa or India at the time.
Yeah.
They had leaderboards, they had strict international rules governing the tackle, they had specific weight classes recognized by international associations. The cultural mindset was entirely sporting.
I hear that, but, you know, when you are dealing with a 2,000-pound apex predator that is actively trying to sink your boat in the dark and chewing on your propeller,
Yeah, it's intense.
the psychological motivation has to go way beyond getting a trophy or climbing a leaderboard. To me, this reads much more like a primal, deep-seated human need to conquer nature's most terrifying element.
That makes sense.
It's humanity trying to prove its dominance over the absolute unknown depths of the ocean.
I will concede that the psychological driver was far deeper than standard athletics. It wasn't about a fish as an animal anymore.
Exactly.
It was about the fish as a symbol of the untamable ocean. Catching it was a way of conquering fear itself.
It was the ultimate conquest. But this golden age of monster hunting, this frenzy of dominance that defined the 1950s and 60s, eventually hit a massive moral turning point.
And it was driven by a highly unexpected figure.
Really unexpected.
Fast forward to 1971. The culture of shark hunting is still very much entrenched in that macho dockside conquest.
Right, the goal is to bring the biggest, most terrifying monster back to the harbor, string it up by its tail, and take a photograph standing next to it.
But then, an actor named Fred Gwynne enters the picture.
And if you are listening to this and wondering why the name Fred Gwynne sounds familiar, he was incredibly famous at the time for playing Herman Munster on the hit TV show The Munsters.
Yeah, Herman Munster himself. So Gwynne goes out on the water and manages to fight and secure a massive 1,600-pound shark.
An absolute giant.
By all the unwritten rules of the era, he is supposed to tow this beast back to the harbor and bask in the glory of the conquest.
But he doesn't.
No.
Instead of bringing it back for the ultimate photo op, he does something completely unthinkable for 1971. He insists that the shark be released back into the ocean.
Which is just unheard of.
I just have to point out the delightful irony here. You have a man who is literally world famous for playing a television monster, this towering, intimidating, Frankenstein-like figure in Herman Munster, and he is the exact person who shows unprecedented mercy to a real-life sea monster.
It's a great irony. And his choice had an immediate ripple effect that changed angling forever.
How so?
This raises an important question about humanity's evolving relationship with the natural world. Because Gwyn's act of mercy actually stripped away the trophy hunting veil.
Right.
Once you remove the necessity of killing the animal for a photograph, it shines a harsh spotlight on the inherent cruelty of the methods being used to catch them in the first place.
It forced the entire community to look in the mirror.
Exactly. The sources explicitly state that his actions set entirely new standards for shark hunters. Because they were no longer just focused on the dead weight at the dock, regulators were forced to look at how these sharks were being lured and fought.
Which led to actual changes.
Yeah, this directly led to strict new rules being instituted. They outright prohibited the use of mammal meat for bait, which had been a gruesome but pretty common practice. Yeah. And they restricted certain types of heavy tackle that were considered too damaging to the animal.
So it was the birth of the conservation mindset in extreme angling.
Yes, the realization that proving your skill or your courage didn't require destroying the creature.
Gwyn's catch-and-release moment proves that fishing had finally transcended physical conquest and become something philosophical.
Definitely.
But if we really want to understand fishing as a philosophy, we have to look backward, way backwards, when it first became a spiritual template.
Right. The sources make a hard pivot here to a deeply historical and scriptural context.
Because long before men were hunting great whites for prestige in South Australia, they were casting nets into the Sea of Galilee.
And we really have to remember the reality of what fishing was in the first century. It was not a solitary, reflective hobby.
No, not at all.
It was a grueling communal necessity. The men who did it were tough, weathered, and entirely dependent on the unpredictable, often dangerous nature of the sea for their survival.
So what does this all mean? How do we connect the physical adrenaline of catching a sea monster to the spiritual teachings of the scriptures?
Well, it comes down to the specific interaction detailed in the sources. We have this world-changing moment where Jesus approaches a group of these hard-working Galilean fishermen.
Okay.
He doesn't offer them a better boat. He doesn't offer them a safer harbor or better nets. According to the book of Matthew, chapter 4, verse 19, he tells them that he will make them fishers of men.
It is a staggering leap of faith. The text notes that these men didn't negotiate. They left absolutely everything behind to become his disciples.
Has walked away from it all.
Yeah, abandoned their nets, their entire livelihoods, to spend their days inviting people to listen and follow him.
And when you think about it, the metaphor of the angler is the perfect choice for this spiritual calling.
Totally. Think about literal bait and tackle. You use a physical rod, a line, and a hook to reach into depths you cannot see, hoping to drag a creature into your world.
Right.
But the metaphorical tackle these apostles used was completely different. Their tackle was compassion, it was service, it was teaching.
Which completely flips the script.
Exactly.
Instead of using force to pull an animal out of the water, they use spiritual tools to pull people out of the dark.
I love that.
When you look at the physical dedication of an extreme angler think back to Alfred Dean, sitting in the pitch black, battling all night long, enduring the violent bumps against the hull of his boat. There is a direct parallel to the spiritual dedication required of the apostles.
They both require immense patience.
Yes.
You have to be willing to venture out into deep, completely unpredictable waters. You have to weather the storms, and you have to sit in the quiet and wait.
And above all, both require an unshakable faith in what you cannot yet see. You are casting a line into the unknown. Yeah. The physical angler pulls a record-breaking catch from the literal depths. The spiritual angler pulls human souls toward hope, community, and truth.
And the source material leaves us with a very clear, enduring truth. This isn't just an ancient story locked away in antiquity.
No, it's highly relevant.
The sources emphasize that if you serve and teach others like Jesus and his apostles did, you can also be a fisher of men.
It makes the concept incredibly personal for you, the listener. The invitation to be a fisher of men is as active today as it was on the shores of the Sea of Galilee.
It is an invitation to take those exact same traits, the patience, the resilience, the willingness to step into the unknown depths of human relationships, and apply them to how you treat the people around you.
It redefines the entire concept of the ultimate catch.
How so?
Well, we started this deep dive with a 2,664-pound great white shark, which is a physical marvel of the natural world.
A literal monster.
Right. But the ultimate catch, in this spiritual context, is a human heart. It is the act of bringing someone into light, understanding, and love through service and teaching.
What an incredible journey through the sources today. We started by looking at ancient Chinese texts from the 4th century, documenting the very first mechanical reels.
Yeah, purely for survival.
Then we stood on a wooden boat in the dark with Alfred Dean in 1959, feeling the terrifying physical force of a sea monster off Denial Bay.
Conquering fear.
We watched Fred Gwynne, the man famous for playing a television monster, trigger a massive paradigm shift toward conservation and mercy in 1971.
Such a great moment.
And finally, we explored the eternal, profound calling of the apostles, who left their literal nets behind to become fishers of men.
It really covers the entire spectrum of human ambition. From the need to survive, to the need to conquer, to the ultimate need to serve.
It really does.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to that one specific detail about Alfred Dean.
Oh, the record holder.
Yeah, the man who held and still holds the ultimate physical record for the largest catch in human history. He died in 1991, and he went to his grave still believing that there was a bigger one out there in the ocean.
He never lost that sense of wonder or the belief that the depths held something even greater.
He didn't. And I think that is the final thought to really mull over today.
Okay.
Perhaps whether we are casting a literal line into the dark sea, or whether we are reaching out to serve and teach the people in our daily lives as fishers of men, human nature is always driven forward by that exact same faith.
The unwavering belief that our greatest, most meaningful catch, our highest purpose, is still out there waiting for us.
Exactly.
It's just waiting beneath the surface. Until next time, keep casting your line. Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.